Right, so what do you think about all this, Robert? The Conservatives, I mean, they're beginning to sound like the Labour Party. Are they on some secret mission to raise tax constantly?
Well, it seems, pretty out of character. You have Rishi Sunak and other Conservatives constantly talking about how they like low taxes and they want to cut taxes. Whereas in practice, what we've seen over the last couple of years is Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson have increased taxes by more than, almost any other chancellor over the last few decades. And it's because we've got really low levels of growth and lots of pressure on public spending after a decade of austerity. So there's huge pressure from the public, huge political pressure to spend. And that's meant that Rishi Sunak has ended up increasing taxes. Now, I think increasing taxes is always a political choice, and what taxes you increase is also a political choice. And so we've seen things like national insurance go up, and that is something that is paid by most workers, whereas there are still lots of loopholes. If you have lots of wealth and you're really rich, you can still pay low levels of tax. So tax, very political issue, very political choices about which taxes you increase, which ones you drop.
But, Robert, does it make sense to you, because I'm struggling with it, that if you wanted to, because the economy was actually growing just before all of this, does it make sense to you that you would restrict the flow of expenditure by increasing taxation? So therefore, the people who would be spending, it reduces their discretionary income. Once you've done that, then, of course, they'll stop paying things like Netflix, so other businesses start to suffer. They then tighten their belts, start to reduce their workforce, so that starts to create unemployment, and then they increase their prices to make up for the shortfall. Does it make sense to you that increasing taxes, because if you increase tax, it's commonly known that you'll shrink the economy? I don't understand the thinking behind this.
So, a lot of economists were critical of Rishi Sunak saying we must increase taxes. And they were saying, actually, this is the wrong time to increase taxes. We had a recession caused by the pandemic. We have a huge cost of living crisis at the moment, really hitting people's pockets. And so big questions, as you say, is this the right time to raise taxes, and who are you raising taxes on? I think there are political questions about when and who you raise taxes on. It doesn't feel like the right thing to do. It feels as though Rishi Sunak, on the one hand, is like, I want to cut taxes, I want to be a Conservative chancellor, and yet on the other, feels this pressure to bring in the money. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that growth is so low at the moment. He
just looks really like he knows what he's doing, but I don't think he does. What about the Labour Party then? Have you heard anything they're saying? Have they mentioned much? I know about their talk of a windfall tax, but have they talked about anything else?
So really, the Labour Party are keeping their gunpowder dry when it comes to tax rises. I mean, I think it is almost inevitable that they're going to want to go into the next election promising more spending on whatever their top priority is. And that means there will probably be some form of tax rises. But here it comes to questions about who they increase taxes on. And there's been some mood music coming from Rachel Reeves, from other people, from Keir Starmer, talking about some of the loopholes that mean that wealthy people pay lower levels of tax. You can look at things like capital gains tax to bring in more money. But at the moment, Labour has said very, very little about what its tax plans would be beyond relatively small things like a windfall tax or revisiting business rates.